have a lot of committee members. And the primary agenda item on number 1 is to hear from the committee members. So.
The only ones I've heard from online is out of town, and Blue Lake now has a conflict.
Okay.
Is County CJCC still a representative from the city of Augustine?
She's quit coming, I don't know.
So, I mean, I can go ahead and come into session, or we could chit chat for a few more minutes. Let's just chit chat for a couple more minutes. Chit chat. Everybody voted, that's when you can chit chat about that. If you haven't voted, you can do so until 5:30 across the street. Yeah, if I just say we don't have enough people. We're chit-chatting, Jim.
Good. Chat's always good.
Yeah.
Send us an email. I guess I got 3 pretty quick, so I'll go ahead. 10 seconds.
Yeah, but they're gonna leave us.
Call to order the informal meeting of, I'm sorry, that is a habit from all day long. Call to order the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee meeting. It's Wednesday, September 4th, 2013. There's a number of items on the agenda, some of which I think will move fairly quickly because committees have not entirely restarted. The first item is jail and courthouse needs solutions, input from committee members. I would just kind of as an introduction to this, some committee members I might have attended some of the input sessions and others not. The board had been out in August with a series of 7 input sessions. The schedule and the handout looked like this that kind of told people the objectives. A sheet like this was handed out that kind of outlines our current situation. And then both in those meetings and on our website was 2 questions that we asked people to give us input in. We held these input sessions at a variety of locations and times, including Saturday morning and Sunday evening and evenings and daytime and Iowa City, Coralville, North Liberty, Solon, and Lone Tree. And so a variety of locations. And so they were not particularly large meetings, but I think the conversation at a lot of them got pretty in detail and pretty in depth and a lot of give and take because, you know, it wasn't a big forum, and so I think people had an opportunity to talk a lot. The input we've received on the website so far is
About 20.
20. Okay. Here are the 2 questions, and we'd kind of like to spend some time here just having the various CJCC committee members and talk about these same questions and what's on your mind. What do you think are the most pressing needs of the Johnson County Courthouse, including the offices of the clerk of court, county attorney, courtrooms, chambers, program and meeting space, etc.? How would you like to see those needs addressed? That was question number 1. Pretty open-ended, and people used a variety of methods to talk about those. Number 2, what do you think are the most pressing needs of the Johnson County Jail, including inmate housing, sheriff's office, program and meeting space, etc.? How would you like to see those needs addressed? And so Item number 2 on our agenda here is just input from the committee regarding those 2 questions, and we'd love to hear what's on your mind about those issues. And just same rules apply. The first time you talk, if you would say your name, that would be helpful to the auditor's office and any listeners that may be out there who will listen to this audio file. There's a microphone in the ceiling, so you're being recorded regardless of where you are. It's a little dot right over here. The floor is yours for anyone who would like to talk.
John Stratton, and this probably won't be helpful, but the questions that are being raised here remind me a little bit of the surveys I get from the Democratic Party when they're soliciting funds. Would you indicate what is most important to you? Health care, full employment, balanced budget, keeping taxes low. They're all important. And it's very difficult to rank one. And I think that's true of the needs that we have. 2, we've spent 10 years trying to address the question of which are most important. And I think that the answers that the committee have come up with for those questions are probably better answers than we would get from surveys or public discussions. It's like I'm going to build a new house and I survey my neighbors what I should put most of my money into. Bathrooms, living rooms, deck, whatever. The person that knows best what I need, what I want, is me. And I think with the jail and the courthouse, the people who know best what is needed are the people who work there and use those resources. Having said that, we are, I think, being forced to make choices and or look at different avenues of funding these. And my feeling would be that we would try to prioritize relying on the stakeholders for prioritization and then look for means of funding beyond bond issues. One of the problems with criminal justice is that for most people, it's really not an issue. It's not a major concern. It comes last in their interest. Libraries come first, schools come first, criminal justice comes last. And so if you're talking about the needs of and the rights of people involved in the criminal justice system, maybe the majority isn't the place to go. It's just like civil rights. If we're talking about what's fair for women, what's fair for gays, what's fair for blacks, we don't look to the majority to rule on that. We look to experts, we look for the Constitution in those cases. But it's not a popularity contest. Having said that, I don't think I've probably added much to the solution, but hope I've crystallized the problem.
Thanks, John. I mean, I would say that anything you have to say is important here, and saying that we've studied this for 12 years is important. I mean, so if you don't like the questions, change the question to however you want it and say whatever's on your mind.
Ron Berg. If I just accept that we're not going to get the ideal solution here, which would be both the jail and the courthouse, like we've been voting for, then I can step back and say, okay, then what's the bottom line? And for me, that's safety. And it would be safety for the public, safety for employees, safety for the inmates, and that should drive the discussion forward. I think it may, I don't know, but it may answer some of the other questions about how the space is utilized. But that, I think that should be the bottom line, is start from those standards.
Jim Berger. I guess my.
Sorry, Jim, I was writing.
I'm on the same page as Ron, I think. And safety has always been the primary concern of mine, and I still look at a courthouse that is not secure for entrance, and can't be under the current configuration. Of all of the buildings you look around that are secured and getting into, and a place where you have the highest passions and contested matters that go on where these kinds of circumstances can arise. I think securing the courthouse is an important one, and adding to that the crowded space that's in that courthouse. So I think that there has to be some kind of addressing of those issues, and I think the only way to do that is there's got to be some kind of a structure that has to be constructed, whether it's next to the courthouse or whether it's across the street with the GSA land or wherever it is. It has to be constructed. I mean, people don't particularly care for the fact that it was behind the courthouse, so there's been some ideas about adding it to the south part of the courthouse and using the old south entrance for securing the facility, and that could be used in connection with the courthouse. I don't know how you get around the fact people don't like the design, unless you're going to go out and construct a building with the same stone facade that's on the current courthouse, which is going to cost us an arm and a leg to be able to do. You've got design issues that people have if you're going to connect it to the courthouse. I do not think moving the courthouse to another location is the solution. I think everybody keeps talking about moving it outside the city limits. Don't talk about all the transportation and problems that's going to create for people to get out there who need to use it. And downtown, I think, is the perfect place for it to be. I don't know the solution because we've been defeated twice on a variety of issues. I think a lot of that goes to the fact that they have used information about criminal offenses for safety. Take a lot of issues and throw them, but the bottom line has always been, for us, at least for me, has been safety. And there are a lot of collateral issues that can be used to overlook that issue, but we do have a safety issue, and there needs to be concern. So I think something needs to be done with the courthouse. I think it needs to be done in a fashion that we can secure the entrance into. I think it needs to be done in a fashion that we can correct with the overcrowdedness that's been created in that structure from the clerk of court, the county attorney's office, to the courtrooms. And I see that only with some type of a facility, and I see it being attached to the courthouse in some fashion. How that's all done to get voters to not argue about what it looks like when we're trying to keep people safe, and whether it's on the front or the back or wherever. We've only got so much money to work with, and if we add too much money, people don't want it because there's too much money. If we had all the unlimited budget we had, we could make a nice facility that could blend right into that courthouse, and they wouldn't even know it's two structures. But we'd never get something like that passed, so we're kind of in a catch-22 in that circumstance. I still like the idea that there is a secure facility for inmates coming into that building, and I liked it when it was attached to the jail because of all of the conveniences, not conveniences, but the safety that could be obtained by that by securing in and out of it, having the sheriff's office flexible to handle any problems that might occur. I liked all that. That didn't occur so much. So maybe the structure can start with something that secures the inmates coming into the facility as well through a different entrance and access to new courtrooms that would be there, similar to what we did before on a smaller scale, and we'd still be able to get some on the jail. Jail is a thorny question. People don't want people to be arrested. You have a movement across the nation now to legalize marijuana. If it's not done by laws, then it's done by executive order. And so, I mean, you have a movement that's out there to try to delegalize, criminalize the use of marijuana and other drugs, and who knows where it goes. that doesn't solve the problem. We have serious people committing crimes in this county who are being traveling to and from other counties, not having access to attorneys and families. And put us at risk in the travel back and forth. So maybe we do it on a smaller scale, but, you know, quite frankly, I don't know, I mean, as much as I'd like to see us do something with the jail. I think we need something with the jail. You can say in one part, people say, okay, I think the jail hurts us because we lose the population for those who want to decriminalize everything that's out there, and say how they experienced the problem, which was bad, and disproportionate arrests. And hopefully we try to address those things with committees and looking at them, but that sometimes is fast enough for people. But at the same time, you get the other people who say, you know, we need a jail. So we separate them. Now that we open a whole new faction of people who say, okay, if you would have included this, I would have voted for you. So I don't know what the answer is. All I know is we have safety and security issues in a courthouse that are different than the jail. The jail is a movement of prisoners, and you can make them more humane by lessening that and dropping the number to 50 and transporting another 42, and if they have the county pay for it, say, okay, we're making the conditions in this jail better for everybody. You guys pay for it because you didn't want a new building. But you can't do that in the courthouse. Walk in the courthouse and you're not secure. There's nothing that stops anybody from going in there with guns, knives, or anything else. And something happens in that courthouse, we're all going to make it look like we haven't won our case. And so I think security in the courthouse, taking care of the product conditions we have in that courthouse, is the first. And we can deal with the jail, but deal it with a different manner. And if they want to pay for people being transported, let's do it. Let's make the numbers less in the jail, and transport more people. And I think that we could use the facility we have for the jail and do that. Whether that's the right answer or not, I don't know. You can throw out any number, but I do think that the security, safety issues of the courthouse are real, need to be addressed.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else want to comment? Anything that's on your mind where we head next? What you think should occur? Direction?
This is Doug Russell. Since the board adjourned the committee for the summer, there's been considerable discussion among the judges and between court administration and the judges. And at such time as the board will put the Chief Judge Grady on the agenda, he's going to present you with details of what our request would be and what our view of the priorities would be. But until that happens, I'm not in a position to address the position of the judiciary as a stakeholder in the new Justice Center or in the courthouse. So I have to leave it at that for today.
Thanks, Doug. Andy, did we get a date?
No, I've communicated with Carol Edmondson, and right now the Chief Judge is gone, so he's going to make up for this.
Doug, we just didn't want to have it in August while we were still doing input sessions. We thought that would kind of, it would move it along faster than we wanted. We wanted the public to talk. And so I think we offered a series of dates. Yeah, so we'd love to have Chief Judge and whoever else wants to come.
I read the emails, and the Chief Judge is looking forward to the opportunity to address the board.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone else? Maybe we can solicit a little discussion by telling you what we worked on last week. The board was working on our calendar for the rest of the year. And this is kind of a side note, but we have to find a bunch of dates for budget meetings. So everybody had their calendars out, and we worked on a bunch of dates. And right now we're looking at a series of one meeting that would predominantly be an input session that we we would request input from the various chiefs of police, including the university police, city managers, city councils, mayors, so more of an input from government itself on where they think we should head next in some of our partners and a variety. That came, was a great idea. It came from a North Liberty City Council member. We had a joint meeting with North Liberty, and we thought that was a great idea. So we're attempting to schedule that. Andy can fill you in on all the scheduling. The next meeting, we thought after we do that, the chief judge is in there somewhere, kind of depending on their date. And then we thought we would have a very large public meeting where we'd open up the microphone with all 5 supervisors there. In order to cover more of the county, we split up in 2 last month. And that, you know, it's just hard to find 7 dates that we can all be there at a variety of times. So we divided up in 2, and so we thought we should have a large public input meeting. And then when we finished that, those 3 meetings, we thought we would have a work session of the Board of Supervisors and the county attorney and the county sheriff with a bunch of what we call gigantic Post-it notes and really start hashing out everything that we've heard from people, everything that we've been thinking, and different directions people are willing to talk about, what seems to be off the table if people have things drawn, and then bring that all back to CJCC, which we hope to delay by a week next month because of the timing. So we gave Andy this task to figure out this entire schedule, and as you might understand, it was not easy, and I'm not sure he's done. So Andy, you want to tell him what you've worked out?
Sure. Well, the first schedule that we talked about is kind of out, and so what I'm looking at now for the government session is either the afternoon of October 1st, or if you wanted first thing in the morning, that could be October 2nd, or using this time, October 2nd for the CJCC meeting. Move.
So October 1st is in there. It's got a weird break in it because there's LEPC, it's some emergency management thing, which a lot of law enforcement and fire and me have to be at. That's at 10 o'clock. So we can either start the governmental meeting, I think Terrence had proposed 7:30 in the morning.
That's taken.
Did, but that got taken with a issue first.
Oh, okay.
So we're looking probably at 1 o'clock or so.
Okay.
Like right after that.
So the afternoon of the 1st would be, literally, we would give an there's always an open invitation, but a particularly open invitation to police, city council, mayors, city managers, and just literally give them the microphone and let them give their thoughts on where we should go from here. Does the afternoon of the 1st work?
You do it in here and here.
Yes. I haven't checked the availability. And just, I mean, the other question would be is if scheduling, if you wanted to go either morning or afternoon, then that could be on the 2nd. So just kind of whatever time of day you think would work best for an invitation to vote, recognizing the elected, elected officials may have a problem during the day, but staff would, so it's sort of 50-50 probably.
How about October 1st at 1 o'clock?
Sounds good to me.
What day of the week is that?
Tuesday.
Okay.
All right.
And then for the public meeting, you had talked about October 7th, the evening at 6 o'clock, which just due to location, it would have to be here based on what I've found so far. If you wanted to move it a day to Tuesday the 8th, I have tentatively reserved meeting room A and B of the Iowa City Public Library.
So our options are here, courthouse on the 7th or the 8th, here, Iowa City Public Library. But Corville's booked both days.
You talked about the 8th during the evening?
Yes. We had originally said like 7 to 8 or something, or 6 to 8. Start at 6. Look at a couple hours. Does anybody have a preference of location? We were trying to go to the Corville Library, but both of those dates are out, right?
Usually 7 or 8.
Well, that's brother. If you want it off-site, or if you want it downtown.
Andy, was the Corville Library out on October 2nd? Okay. All right, that's what we need to go. 7th or 8th, and the location, so I think the board both said that 7th or 8th, either one worked. I don't know that it matters, but City West volleyball is that night, and there's the Battle of the Spike, draw a big crowd,
Which night?
the 8th. Anybody have any thoughts? I think you must be free both nights because we had both on the table.
This is for the public?
Yeah. All right, so if it's on the 7th, it has to be here or the courthouse. We talked about going to the fairgrounds, but transportation doesn't work there. If it's on the 8th, we could go to Iowa City Public Library. Okay. Anyone want to argue with Pat?
Seems like we get a lot more response for having things downtown or in this area.
Sure, talking Tuesday the 8th.
Tuesday the 8th, like 6 to 8. Does that work? As much as we're at the school board forum, I don't, when we had this at the courthouse, we, 50? 60?
Was this, did you check recently, or you checked last week? Which one? The 8th? Available?
We already
Yeah,
know.
I
It's on
reserved
the,
Oh, you did hold it?
yeah, it's just room A, so I didn't know if I needed to
Oh,
add
but I
B
did
and
B,
C.
A, and B.
It has to be A, B, and C to have the big one.
Probably should do
So I'm gonna do that.
Fine. So October 8th, 6 to 8 p.m., more geared towards the public. The one in the day, the week before, more geared towards government. Doesn't mean a sheriff, a chief of police can't show up at the public one, but we just particularly wanted to solicit more voices. All right, and then the chief judges, there's only one. We basically said in Thursday, did they want to be on TV or did they not? And then we wanted to move CJCC then to the 9th, so that, in the hope that we would have had both the governmental input, the public input, the judges' input, and then reconvene this committee on cancel the 2nd, or just postpone the 2nd to the 9th at 4:30. Okay,
What are you thinking about the process of little stickers and the whole deal? Is that?
then we got that down as we're holding all day on the 14th, all day on the 15th, or I'm sorry, the morning of the 15th, and all day on the 16th, and we would just rearrange something depending on what they picked for Lonnie and Janet to be available about 3 to 4 hours, right?
And I have their availability.
Yeah,
Have that.
Okay, so we now, one of those days would be a work session of the board and Lonnie and Janet, where we would just in to have broader discussion. Does that sound fair? We're looking about 3 to 4 hours, Janet. And we'll soon know which one we pick, and then the board would rearrange the rest of our week schedule then based on that.
And I'm starting to erase stuff. I know there was also a chat folks. Don't erase anything.
Do not erase any of the ones that
Public
are
input
in
sessions,
box.
precincts would be
Andy's
lost
gonna
heavily.
use-
That's the only other one left, right?
If you want 60% of them are where they lost heavily. That's
Well,
what
whatever.
sessions are, like North Liberty, they have North Liberty.
So, not the 14th or 16th, but other days, so.
We can handle that tomorrow, right?
Yeah, don't worry.
Don't erase anything until our board meeting tomorrow. All right. Is there questions or thoughts about that, that kind of laid out schedule? And does that trigger CJCC members to have any other thoughts you'd like to share with us?
I make a request. John, you're the one that brought up the idea of prioritize. And I think it would be helpful maybe to even get all of us what was in the plans of November and then the most recent one in March, May, whatever it was. To show us at least kind of start to generate in your minds, you get your minds moving a little bit, what you liked, what you didn't like, what can you live with, what can't be lived without. I mean, that might be a helpful way so that when we get to eventually kind of that strategic planning part of that, we can get that kind of input from the folks, particularly, as John, you pointed out, some of the direct stakeholders. I think that's going to be an important part of this as well, just to kind of get a feel for what absolutely is a must versus what can be held off. Part of it is going to be a funding issue. So we're just kind of generating that. I think we kind of had a breakdown from our consultants in regards to what certain things cost, certain space cost. So it'd be helpful to kind of hear from the experts as well, just to know what you're thinking in regards to prioritizing.
This is Dorothy Liston. It seems to me that one of the conversations we need to have is not just about space and safety and security, but is about law enforcement, criminal justice, because I think that really is part of what is feeding the resistance, building a new jail and courthouse, not for all people certainly, but I think for enough people. So I don't know if at that one public meeting you want to try to offer a space where people can just give their thoughts about, I mean, I think part of it is that there is a national movement now to change the way the criminal justice system works in our nation. And I think Johnson County needs to be at the forefront of that as we plan for this facility, and I think we need to be publicly in the forefront of that and an engaged party. And so whether it's disproportionate minority contact or just drug war sort of stuff, generally overuse of the growth of the criminal justice system in the last 30 years, I think it's an issue on people's mind. And I'm not sure we're going to turn the corner just by rearranging things and cutting the budgets on. So I think that's an important conversation to have.
So a number of Johnson County staff and a lot of our funding, has gone into efforts like this. But one of the things I have kind of a problem figuring out, and if you can help me, Dorothy, that'd be great. You've been having these meetings for 10 years. I've been here now 4 years of that. And I've only seen a non-sheriff law enforcement officer at one of these meetings. And so, if we twist arms and ask them to come talk to us at this meeting on October 1st, some of them will probably show up. But they need to be on the receiving end of lot of this discussion, because the county just doesn't arrest that many people. And I don't know how to make them be on their receiving end. I mean, what I know is city council elections all over the county, and in 2 of the cities that have had issues about disproportionate minority contact, there isn't even enough candidates to trigger a primary. Now, the filing deadline in all the other cities isn't here yet, but there's not a groundswell of political support coming up of people who appear to be concerned about these issues that are putting up candidates. And so I don't have any power over the chiefs at all. I mean, other than I'm a resident of Iowa City and I can call the city manager. So I can't make them sit there and listen to public input, which is what I think actually needs to happen. So I mean, one thing we could do is say, we want you to sit with us and listen to this. But we've asked, for example, for joint meetings with Coralville and Iowa City, and have been turned down flatly, period.
On this issue?
Just on any issue. Because they, every other city in the county we've had joint meetings with. And Iowa City and Coralville have refused to have a joint meeting with us on any issue. And so, I mean, you can take that for whatever it's worth. Rod even tried to put it in a contract that they would have 2 meetings with us a year. And their lawyers just crossed it out and said, not negotiable, And so I'm kind of curious, while I think that as a citizen that should happen, I don't know how to make that happen. I mean, I have 0 control over the chiefs. I mean, probably less than any other citizen of Iowa City. I mean, that's how much they care about the county's opinion about these issues. So how do we make it happen?
I mean, it seems to me that that's basically saying that they don't care where they put their prisoners. I mean, it's their prisoners. It's the university and the city's prisoners, and Coralville, I guess.
I certainly can't speak for them, but I see absolutely no evidence that once they drop a prisoner, an inmate off, not a prisoner, an inmate, that they care one iota. Maybe they haven't shown up to any of the meetings. They weren't visible in any of the public discussion. There's a random law enforcement officer here or there that has spoken out, but I mean, none of their bosses did about anything. If someone has evidence of that, I'd be glad to know it, but I don't think they care if we ship them out. I really don't think they care at all. Or that they don't get to exercise, or that they can't meet privately with counselors, and that we can't do alternatives to violence because of space or anything else. And so if you have an idea of how to get them to care about that, I think I'm totally happy to try to use a bully pulpit to get them, to shame them into sitting there and listening.
I mean, I guess that's one thing to do, is to invite them to be a part of this meeting with the public. And if they say no, give it to the press. They won't come talk about criminal justice in Johnson County. I mean, because they do need to be held accountable. They use this facility more than the county law enforcement does, and they need to be part of solving an issue that is county-wide, but predominantly related to Iowa City, Coralville, and the university. And I guess I'd invite them and encourage them, and ask the city managers to instruct them. And but then if they don't, I think it's fair game to let the public know that they won't come to the table.
So let me make sure, because the nuances of this criminal matter. On October 1st, we invite governmental entities, top to bottom, come talk to us. Microphone's yours, tell us what you think should happen, what your ideas are, or whatever. And then on October 8th, we invite all the chiefs of police to sit with us as we receive public input from the public.
I'm not attached to exactly how this would be done.
I'm fine with that. you know, I'm fine with asking them.
Or put on that first meeting, the agenda, not only of what nuts and bolts do we want to change, but where do we stand in terms of public support for the way criminal justice operates in Johnson County. I mean, I think we have to look at, I believe strongly, that it is part of the defeat of this bond issue twice. And I think we at least need to ask people that straight out and not just rearrange things.
Well, and I mean, on October 1st, we intended to hear more than talk. I mean, I think it's two different meetings.
That's fine.
As if we're going to talk about our concerns, it's different than we want them to come and talk to us. If we want them to listen to the public, I mean, we certainly can invite. I mean, I don't know if, I mean, nobody exactly knows what we should do. So we're all making this up as we go along. If there was a little playbook, we would probably be following it. So, I mean, I think the board is willing to have more meetings and more public meetings, willing to rearrange schedules. I mean, you know, I'm not sold on this is all we're gonna do. I mean, we can rearrange.
I guess I'm just trying to say that I don't think there will be a lot of support from people who otherwise would support this. I mean, I think it is low on people's priority, but I think the people who are most likely to support it have real concerns about the criminal justice system in this country generally and in Johnson County particularly. And I think we need to have a public conversation about that. And I think we needed to have it between these last two votes and didn't. And I think it came back to haunt us. And I think if we, you know, I mean, we might be able to pull it apart into enough little projects that they'll get through. But I think it's an important conversation for this community to have.
Dorothy, I think, I'm inclined to agree with you, but I think we need to be a little more specific. Because I think when you throw that out there, and I'm guilty of this too, when you throw that out there, people, what does that mean? You know, I mean, I think maybe, for example, going to the southeast side of Iowa City and talking about the DMC numbers, for example, which are, you know, are just not good any way you slice it. I think people can make all kinds of explanations as to perhaps why that is. I don't know if any of us know. I don't know if anybody nationwide necessarily knows, but we could at least do something like that. You know, we could do something specifically on, you know, marijuana. But again, there's only so much that's within our power to control. You know, is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
I mean, I don't know that you need to, I mean, there are certainly more people than on the southeast side who are concerned about DMC.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's a countywide issue. But I think it's issues like petty drug charges, alcohol enforcement, and some of it is continuing misunderstanding on the part of the public, I think. Some of it is that people don't support current police practices. And I think that we just need to have a conversation, and I think we can structure it. You know, we can have a bunch of categories of issues or whatever, but I do think it's an issue that the community needs to have.
And I think we should have that conversation, but last night, at least one person changed their mind. The Iowa City Council voted 5-2 to create another level of criminal poverty. And so the disconnect between Iowa City, and it's not just Iowa City. I mean, our staff member, you know, who was racial profiled, leaving, trying to get home, was at University Heights. My neighbor kid is North Liberty Police. We can tell you what happened on Saturday at the football game by some, you know, bad apples of the University Police. But the city council doesn't appear to care because they're going to create yet another level of criminal out of people who are in poverty. And so I mean, I'm happy to schedule whatever meeting we want to have.
I don't think we can
But I
stop
can't
them from
make
doing
them
that.
listen.
I don't think we can stop them from doing that, but I think if the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee of Johnson County came out saying we don't think it's a good idea and that we really need to look at policing in this community, that, you know, that people would hear that. And I think if we can give a forum for people to tell the city, don't do it, that we would be doing not only the county a favor, but also, and not just Iowa City, also the eventual fulfillment of what we really do need to have here. So that's just my opinion, that part of this process needs to be an open public conversation about policing locally and criminal justice in general. So that's, you know.
Anyone have any ideas on how to do that?
John Stratton. I think there's a lot of frustration in various groups about what's going on in the criminal justice system. And there always has been, and probably there always will be, because there are different perspectives. And I think that the idea of a public conversation is very good, but I want to ask, if we have that conversation and it doesn't come up with solutions, or if the solutions are the kind that take 5, 10 years. I mean, these problems have been around since I've been born, and they're not going to be solved certainly immediately. Any solution is going to take time. It's a complex issue, a complex problem. They need to be addressed, but will that help with the jail situation, with the courthouse situation? I don't think that the folks that are frustrated and concerned just want a public airing. I think they want solutions. And public airing doesn't necessarily get you the kinds of
We
solutions.
talked a little bit before, John, about exactly that. And some of these things I think we may have to do simply because we think they're the right thing to do, with the understanding that they might not actually get us any closer to meeting some of the facility needs that we have. But they address a concern that keeps being brought up.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with it.
Yeah,
In fact, I'm agreeing with your conclusion.
Yeah, I
It may
think you're
not.
right. It may not actually get us closer, but we've been asked to discuss it.
Yeah.
I will say that on the DMC issue, several people said at one of the forums against the jail before the last vote that they would not vote for the jail and then trust that the county would address that issue afterwards, that they wanted to see concrete steps being taken by the county to address the disproportionate minority incarceration in the jail before they would ever vote for a new jail. So I think that not only do we need to have the conversation, but I also think the county does need to take some very concrete steps from law enforcement through the courts, through the county attorney's office, to see why this continues to happen at the rate that it does, and to make policy changes and whatever it takes to begin to turn it around. And I'm not, you know, that's one thing, and then I think the range of policing priorities in the communities is another, and they're not related. So I think we have a problem that's bigger than finances and aesthetics and people don't like this or they don't like that about what we proposed. I think we have that problem too, but I think if we can take that apart in 1,000 different ways, and if we don't address this bigger thing, I think it isn't going to change.